Good Morning Scramble. I'm Sandy Moss. It's a big anniversary today. Not sure if you knew, but it is 69 years ago that Japan surrendered in World War II and ended the war. That was August 15th, 1945. However, in the Western Hemisphere, I found out it was yesterday, August 14th, but we're celebrating it today, the end of World War II, the big war. I have with me today some very special guests. Ronny, Herman, Jong is joining us. First of all, nice to have you on, Ronny.
Thank you, Sandy. Good
and you look awfully young to have been in World War II.
I have good genes, and I take good care of them.
Well, there's a reason you were just a child.
Yes.
You're an author of this book, Rising from the Shadow of the Sun. You were a prisoner of war.
Yes. When I was 3 years old, the war broke out, and we were living on the island of Java because my dad was a pilot with the Dutch Naval Air Force, and he was, after his training in the Netherlands, he was sent to the colony. So we lived there, and I was born, and my little sister was born, and then the war broke out. So my dad got the order to leave immediately for the south of the island because the Japanese came from the north, and he left. He came home, picked up a suitcase, and left. And my mom and my little sister and I were put 2 months later. The Japanese came on our island, and the army surrendered, and we were put in a camp. They surrounded us with barbed wire and bamboo.
Now this is like almost unprecedented in some way. Obviously, your father left because he would have been in the most danger.
Yes,
is what they thought. But usually, women and children, civilians, I mean, though they are obviously in danger at different times, had this happened before where they had come in and imprisoned women and children?
Not that I know of, but and then, you know, that's why it's not known.
Never heard of this until you, Ronny.
Right.
A few years ago. I had never heard this happened. And was it who went into this? Was it Japanese women and children as well?
No, it was just the Dutch, the white people, because people that were mixed-blooded stayed outside of the camps. They had a hard time too, but so the Dutch, it was a Dutch colony, so most of the people were Dutch, but there were also English and people from the United States and people from Australia. So all of those people were incarcerated.
Were you considered a threat? The Japanese obviously considered a threat?
No, but they wanted to kill us all. No threat, but they wanted to kill us all, because if they killed and eradicated the Western race in Asia, they would have the monopoly, and that's what they were after.
Well, that sounds a little bit like Germany during World War II.
Yeah.
A supremacist, racial supremacist philosophy.
Definitely. So
I don't know that anyone realized that. I mean, I didn't, certainly. I mean, Germany, of course, we totally get the Aryan race supremacy thing, but the Japanese feeling that way,
we were just scum.
Amazing.
And so I would not remember a whole lot because I was a little girl. But my mom wrote everything down because she had parents in the Netherlands, and the connection was broken when Germany invaded the Netherlands. And so she started writing. She bought this great big journal, started writing even before the Japanese came to our island, everything that happened to us, how we little girls grew up, and then how the Japanese invaded our city, how we were put in a camp, the gates were closed, we couldn't get groceries and everything. She wrote it all down. And so then, step by step, she wrote down that the Japanese mistreated us and withheld food and medication. And so that is basically how I know what happened during those years that I was in prison.
From that diary.
Yes.
Because you were very young, 3. Do you remember anything about it in terms of, you know, the hardship? Were you frightened?
No, you know what? When you are in a camp or in any situation where you have little food, no medication, as a young kid, you don't know any better. I didn't have toys except for one doll, but I didn't know any better.
And
nobody had toys.
Your mother was with you.
There. That was the focal point. That was the basic important thing.
How many people were interned there? Any idea?
It depends on the camps.
Okay.
So it went from 500 to 1,000 to 10,000. We were moved from camp to camp, and the camps were all getting fuller, so that the situations were, it was more cramped and more diseases broke out, and so we died.
People
died. The older people, the very young, they all died. My mom was early 30s, so she was strong. Yeah. And she persisted in hoping that the war would end soon. She always said, the war will end soon, and then Papa will come back.
Well, well, you'd have to keep the hope alive. And why do you think the Japanese did not kill you all at once? Why do you think they interned you first?
They didn't. They had orders from the emperor that they should start killing, really killing all prisoners in all the camps, starting September 45. They got that early on in 42 or so, but gradually over time, by keeping medication, Red Cross distributions, they kept for themselves. They never gave it to the prisoners. So, and by keeping food to a minimum, they already started the process of killing us. We all died slowly.
Without actually putting a gun to your head or something like that.
But then in September, they were going to start killing people by food, poison in their food, in densely forested islands like Borneo. They would walk them into the jungle until they couldn't walk anymore and then shoot them. And so that's already started, the Bataan Death March and so on. So slowly but surely that's what happened. And only the strongest survived.
Actually, this is so, of course, the Death March of Bataan, we've heard about that a lot. These are military. The soldiers. Yeah, this was the military. But the civilians undergoing this kind of a thing was amazing. And it was on all the islands, was it? Or just?
Yeah.
Okay.
Java, Sumatra, Borneo, Celebes, Philippines also.
And how long were you in the camp?
From March the 8th in 1942, they came walking into our village, our town, and we got out in another town on central Java. We didn't know that the war was over until the 23rd of August. They didn't tell us. And then the camps opened up and they said, you are free. But we didn't know what to do. We didn't know where to go, so we stayed in the camps. And then a second war broke out, the war of the extremists who wanted to have their freedom from the Dutch.
Oh,
so they started killing everywhere.
A harrowing story. And again, you were up all for execution in a month.
In September.
That's right. And the war ended again mid-August.
Thanks to the bombs.
Well, of course, that's only part of just a teaser of the story of rising from the shadow of the sun. Of course, that being the Japanese flag, the large sun. So quite the experiences of Ronny Herman de Jong. And this is available worldwide, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. And also, you have written another book.
Yes.
And this is Survivors of World War II in the Pacific. Right. Because that's where you were. You've got veteran stories in here. Yes. And we are lucky today. We have 2 U.S. Navy veterans on the show.
I know.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
II was the most destructive war in human history. It caused more than 60 million military and civilian deaths. We've talked to a survivor of a Japanese internment camp, Ronny Herman de Jong. And with us we have U.S. Navy veterans, Ed Sowman. Nice to have you on.
Hi.
And also Guy Willis.
Thank you.
Both of you served in World War II. And one was at the beginning of the war, one was at the end of the war.
That's true. I'm the young person here.
Yes, you are, because you also got to go to Korea. Lucky you, Guy.
They let me go twice.
Oh, you were so good. You got well, and of course you made it through the war, both of you. Very happy about that. And now, Ed, how old are you now?
I'm 96 now.
You're 96.
I'll be 97 next week.
I tell you, you look great, my friend. You're doing well. And you were there when the war began on December 7th, 1941 at Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And you were on a ship?
Right.
What ship were you on, Ed?
On the USS New Orleans.
New Orleans. And what was the first thing? What happened that day, Ed?
Well, I saw the first aircraft come down. They came down from Mary's Point, and the first aircraft came down, and the occupants of the airplane were watching us, and they laughed as they passed through us.
The Japanese pilots were laughing about it.
And
close enough you could see their faces.
close enough I could see their faces, right.
And what did you see?
Well, happy people.
And they started dropping bombs on you?
But then, no. But then they went on, and the next thing they did was drop a bomb, a torpedo, into Battleship Row. Battleship Row was about 300 or 400 yards across the water from us. And so this aircraft, and I saw it, and I said to my shipmates, I was in line for breakfast on the weather deck. And I said to my shipmates, well, let's get out of here. So before they even rung the alarms, we were headed for our battle stations. My battle station was in control aft, which I was a radio operator for the executive officer. And so by the time they got around to sounding the alarm, all hands, they had passed the word, all hands, man your battle stations.
Were there a lot of ships by the New Orleans?
No, there was only two, the New Orleans and their sister ship, the San Francisco. We were both in dock, being repaired. And so there wasn't much we could do.
Were you watching them start to bomb all the other battleships on the other side?
So I was watching from the after superstructure where my battle station was. I was watching them drop torpedoes against the ships across the water, which is about 300 or 400 yards.
What was that like, Ed? Terrifying, I imagine.
Yeah, because I saw the Oklahoma bomb. Well, excuse me. 300
yards is not very far, so you're feeling the smoke and the heat and the noise.
Well, Pearl Harbor became one large place of death and problems, because it was, within minutes, it was a fire. And that's about the best I can tell you.
But you're close enough that was the New Orleans or the San Francisco, did you take any torpedoes or bombs?
No, we took one bomb, and that's about all. Outside that, we were left untouched.
And how old were you?
I was 20.
I was trying to figure about 27 or something like that. So 20, oh, you're younger. Okay. Yeah, I was doing the math. So you were on that ship during the whole war then?
I was on, no, not the whole war. I was on it for 3 more years, and I was transferred to new construction in Philadelphia.
Wow. You carry Pearl Harbor with you always, I imagine. Does it ever go away, really?
Always, always.
It's so...
We didn't lose any personnel. We didn't lose any personnel, and that was it.
But hundreds of others, and you were actually a big eyewitness there. Well, again, Ed Sowman, 90, almost 7 years old. Thank you. So, or not almost 98, did you say?
Almost 97.
Almost 97. Okay, well, happy birthday. Thank you so much for your service, Ed. And we're going to come back with the end of the war. So don't you go away. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back first. And today on Morning Scramble, we are honoring and talking to some of those who were very involved in World War II as military and civilians. Ronny Herman de Jong, who has written books about it and was a prisoner of war, and also Ed Sowman, who was at Pearl Harbor when it happened. And finally, Guy Willis. Nice to have you on as well, Guy. U.S. Navy. Again, what was your position in the war?
I was a quartermaster, but let me clarify that most of the World War II years, I was in high school. And in high school, in those years, we weren't deciding whether to go in the service after we graduated, but which service to go into. As you can tell, I chose the Navy.
Yes, and because the war was going on, obviously you're watching it, but too young to participate at the moment. But so you did. You got in on the end of it. We were talking off air just a moment about Pearl Harbor, the movie, and obviously Ed Sowman saw it. I saw it with some Pearl Harbor veterans, and they felt like it was a pretty realistic thing. But you said some of the people in the movie, the men in the movie, were at Pearl Harbor. They were on the men were on the ships.
In our Navy, there were only men. Remember that.
Yes, that's true. You had nurses on shore, but women nurses, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And then they volunteered after, and you, having been at the end of World War II, have been over doing tours on the Missouri for tourists, seeing Pearl Harbor, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. But to back up, I graduated high school in spring of '45 and headed west and spent the summer in Albuquerque. And then I enlisted just before this date. So I was in boot camp on this date in 1945.
Well, and the war could have gone on and on. Something big happened to end the war, and that was the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You had seen atomic testing when you went into the military, had you?
I was in Albuquerque when the first test was fired at Trinity in White Sands, New Mexico. Yes.
Powerful sight, was it?
Well, people did not know what it was at that time. It was in the newspapers as arms depot explosion because the atomic bomb was unknown at that time. But I also, continuing that particular subject, once I got aboard ship in the Navy in the summer of '46, I was at the Eniwetok for the first test out there. So I considered that the fourth test because we had Trinity, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and then the next test at Eniwetok. And
was that another bombing for wartime bombing, or was that really a test? It was still a test.
But
Hiroshima and Nagasaki were technically still, it was new enough, I guess, still tests?
Well, yeah, mind you now, we're already in the summer of '46, and so we, the U.S., had set up tests in the Bikini Lagoon, and they brought surplus Navy ships, U.S., Japanese, and German ships, and formed a fleet in the lagoon at Bikini, and the Air Force came over in a B-29, similar to Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and they dropped the bomb. The center target for that test, by the way, was the USS Nevada, a battleship, and she was painted red from stem to stern.
Like a target?
And the Air Force pilot managed to miss it, but But he
The
scorched,
bomb's big
but he
enough, it
scorched the paint.
Well, fitting, because then the test continued in Nevada for years. You know, and they told us it was safe. I mean, I was, you know, my family was in it. It was big. We're downwinders, I guess. But where were you when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed?
Boot camp, San Diego.
Watched it on TV, or they just told you about it?
I don't think they had invented TV then.
You're right. Was that like the late 40s, 50s? I don't even know.
we heard about it, and trust me, when you're in boot camp, you don't know much about what's going on in the rest of the world.
Imagine.
Yeah.
All you know is it's time to get out and march and march again.
He remembers boot camp 10 years, no, 12 or 14 years before.
How did you feel about the atomic bombs at Hiroshima, Ed?
As a group, we were happy.
It ended the war.
It ended.
Yeah, which, you know, there, of course, President Roosevelt had to make a tremendous decision there in terms of ending the war at a cost of tremendous civilian lives. We were talking about civilians' involvement in war, so that was a huge thing. But it did end the war a week later. This was, I guess, on the 6th and the 9th, Hiroshima and then Nagasaki, and finally on the 15th, the Japanese surrendered and ended World War II. Now, you continued with atomic testing then in your career.
That's true. As a civilian, I spent a lot of time back at Eniwetok and Bikini. And actually, I was there again in the Navy in '54. But then, and from then on, I was back there frequently until '58 when they closed it. And that's when we moved to Nevada.
Wow. Well, and you helped shuttle, of course, the World War II folks home, the military as well, at the end of the war. So, well, the time has flown by again. You can read Ed and Guy's story in Survivors of World War II in the Pacific by Ronny, Herman de Jong. More stories of veterans. Thank you.
Prisoners of war.
And prisoners of war. Thank you. A wonderful honor and history of them. Thanks for joining us, Guy Willis, Ed Sowman.
Thank you.
And also Ronny de Jong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go away. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Really appreciate you joining me on Morning Scramble today. Lots of fun going on this weekend. I can't tell you about too many things, but A Midsummer Night's Dream will be on Sunday in Prescott Valley at the Blue Rose Theater over there. That starts at 7 o'clock, $10 a person. That should be a lot of fun. And of course, on the 69th anniversary of the end of World War II, we are so lucky to have had Ed Sowman on with the U.S. Navy. Also, Guy Willis join us talking about their experiences at Pearl Harbor and in the rest of the war, and also author Ronny Herman de Jong joining us with her new books that you can find online about different aspects of World War II. And tomorrow, sorry, not tomorrow, have a nice weekend. Monday, we will have taco soup. We'll be cooking in the kitchen and also coming alive with jazz. So some live music on here with us at Morning Scramble. Some of the other things that you can go to this weekend, one that I really want to go to is a train swap meet and show. 90 vendors at the Prescott Activity Center on Gurley Street. Train fans from all over will be coming, and you can buy yourself some trains or go to the Sweet Corn Fest over at Mortimer Farms going on Saturday and Sunday, and a big dance I happen to know on Saturday night. So a lot of fun this weekend, again, that you can go to in the area. Of course, we stream live at AZTV.com every weekday starting at 8 o'clock. So we will see you right here in Morning Scramble at 8, Monday.